She went to deliver a pizza. She left carrying his baby. And somehow, neither of them saw that coming. Alright, get comfortable, because this story has more twists than a mountain road, and I promise, by the end, you will be questioning every life decision you have ever made. Let's go. Meet Sofia Reyes. 26 years old, broke as a church mouse, and working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on in her tiny apartment that smelled permanently of instant noodles. By day, she was a junior paralegal at a law firm where she did 70% of the work and got 30% of the credit. By evening, she waitressed at an Italian restaurant. And on desperate Fridays, she delivered pizza for Rosario's. Now Sofia was not your average struggling girl. She was sharp. The kind of woman who read legal documents for fun and could spot a loophole from 3 miles away. What she could not spot, apparently, was a red flag the size of a skyscraper. Because on one rainy Thursday night, the regular delivery guy Marco called in sick, and Sofia ended up delivering a pepperoni special to the 47th floor of the Alderton, the most expensive, most intimidating building in the entire city. The concierge picked up the phone with an expression that suggested Sofia was delivering this pizza to God himself. 2 security guards met her at the elevator, checked her ID, inspected the pizza box, and one of them, a massive, stone-faced man, actually smelled it. It's pepperoni, Sofia said flatly. I promise. Stoneface said nothing and stepped aside. The penthouse doors opened. And Sofia walked in carrying a pizza box and absolutely zero awareness of what she was walking into. The suite was aggressively beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than her entire life, soft jazz floating from somewhere. And standing in the middle of it all, just ending a phone call, was a man in a dark suit. He turned around. Dante Moretti. 6'2". Dark hair. A jaw carved by someone who took their job very seriously. Eyes the color of expensive whiskey. The kind of man that buildings seem to get quieter around. He looked at Sofia. You're not Marco, he said. His voice was low and unhurried, like a man who had never once needed to raise it to get what he wanted. Very observant, Sofia replied, rain still dripping off her nose. Marco's sick. You get me. 1 large pepperoni extra cheese, $22.50. A pause. Something crossed his face, not quite a smile. More like the idea of a smile, still deciding whether to commit. He reached into his jacket and held out $500. Sofia looked at the money. Looked at him. I don't have change for that. Keep it. The pizza is $22.50. I'm aware. That's a $477.50 tip. Your math is correct. Sofia stared at the money for 1 more second, and then held it back out to him. The guard behind her made a small sound. Dante Moretti went very, very still, in the way a person goes still when something genuinely unexpected has occurred. Because in his world, nobody gave money back. Nobody. First time for everything, Sofia said pleasantly, set the receipt on his console table, and turned for the door. Your name, he said quietly. Sofia. He said it back, slowly, like he was filing it somewhere important. And the back of her neck did something she would later describe to her best friend as a whole thing. She left. The elevator doors closed. And she stood in that mirrored elevator, soaking wet, $22.50 richer, wondering why her heart was doing laps. She told her best friend be everything the next morning. B, a full name Beatrice Okonkwo, absolute menace, said exactly what she thought at exactly the wrong time, and was usually devastatingly correct, listened with increasing alarm. He gave you $500 and you gave it back? It felt weird. Girl. You delivered pizza in a flood. What did he look like? Sofia opened her mouth. Closed it. Expensive, she said finally. B pointed at her. We are in trouble. Full scale, red alert trouble. I'm never seeing him again. He's just some rich guy who orders pizza. Reader, she saw him again in 4 days. Another Friday shift. Another order from the Alderton. Another large pepperoni, extra cheese. Sophia took the order before her brain could file an objection. And that was how it started. The Friday deliveries became a ritual. Then he ordered on Thursdays. Then Tuesdays. They talked more each time, small things at first, then bigger things. He was an unusually good listener for someone who looked like he gave orders for a living. He asked questions and waited for the full answer, which nobody did anymore. Sophia noticed things. The way there were always men nearby, not obviously, but present. The way his phone calls cut off the moment she arrived. The way entire lobbies went quiet when he walked through them. She filed it all under investigate this later and kept delivering pizza. Then one Tuesday, he said, "Have you eaten?" "I'm working. I have dinner for 2. She looked at him. "Why do you have dinner for 2? "Because I was hoping you'd stay." Sophia stood in his doorway with an empty delivery bag and a crumbling resolve. "This is a terrible idea," she said. "Probably," he agreed. She stayed for dinner. B found out the truth about Dante Moretti 3 weeks later, because B always found out everything. Sophia. He runs the Moretti crime family. He is the head of the most powerful organized crime operation on this entire coast, and you have been having dinner. Several dinners, Sophia admitted. How many? One of them was lunch. I'm coming over. B arrived with printed articles, a spiritual crisis, and the energy of a woman staging an intervention. She spread everything across Sophia's kitchen counter like a detective laying out evidence. Sophia read quietly. Dante Moretti, 34. Control over the city's import-export trade, construction industry, and 15 other business interests. Never charged. Never convicted. Donated to children's hospitals. Also, reportedly, a man whose enemies had a very poor track record of remaining enemies. Say something, B pleaded. He's never been anything but kind to me. B put her head on the counter. 2 months later, Sophia sat on her bathroom floor at 2 a.m. holding a pregnancy test that had just decided to completely reorganize her entire life. Positive. She stared at it until her legs went numb from the cold tile. She stood up. Sat back down. Paced the full 3 steps her bathroom allowed. Her phone buzzed. B, randomly, can't sleep, you up? Sophia called her immediately. I'm pregnant. Silence. Then, very carefully, is it? Yes. 5 full seconds of silence. Then, I'm coming over. B arrived in 11 minutes with 4 more pregnancy tests, 3 chocolate bars, and the energy of someone who handled crises with thoroughness. All 4 tests were positive. They sat on Sophia's kitchen floor until 4 a.m., talking, not talking, eating chocolate, and somewhere in the early hours, B said quietly, whatever you decide. I'm with you. Every step. Sophia gave herself 2 days to put herself back together. Then she showed up at the Alderton at midnight, unannounced. Bruno, a stone face, whose name she now knew, raised one eyebrow at the elevator. I need to see him, she said simply. Dante opened the penthouse door mid-meeting. 3 suited men at his dining table. Documents everywhere. He looked at Sophia and immediately knew, with the instinct of a man trained to read rooms, that something was different. Clear the room, he said. The 3 men left without a word. Sophia almost wished she could do that. She reached into her jacket pocket and held up the pregnancy test. The room went that specific kind of silent that has actual weight to it. Dante looked at the test. Looked at Sophia's face. Looked back at the test. And then, in what would become the most retold moment of this entire story, Dante Moretti, feared head of the most powerful crime family in the city, looked up and said, with complete sincerity, "Is that pepperoni place still open? I need to think, and I think better with pizza." From across the room, Bruno's coffee cup met the floor. Sophia stared. You are the most powerful criminal in this city. Alleged. And your first response is food? I said I think better. Dante. I'm panicking, he said quietly. Just like that. No armor on it. I don't do this. I don't know what this feeling is. And somehow, that was the most disarming thing he'd ever said to her. This untouchable man, completely undone by a $2 stick from the pharmacy. Sophia sat on his couch. He sat next to her. We talk, she said. Actually talk. No expensive non-answers. Yes. I need to know your world, your risks, what this means for whatever this becomes. I'm not walking in blind. And for the first time in what she suspected was a very long time, Dante Moretti talked honestly. About the family. The power. The weight of a name that came with its own gravity. About enemies who would see a child as leverage. About the fragile, dangerous peace he maintained. A baby changes what people think they can do, he said carefully. Then what? Sophia asked. He looked at her steadily. Then I make sure they understand otherwise. You can guarantee my safety? I can guarantee that anyone who threatens you will deeply regret it in ways that will discourage them permanently. Sophia considered this. That's both reassuring and concerning. Welcome to my world. We're doing this together, she said. Equally. I'm not someone you protect from a distance. I stand next to you. That's statistically more dangerous. I'm a paralegal dating a crime boss. We're past statistics. He looked at her, that same look from the elevator lobby, the one she'd never fully decoded, and said, together. The next 9 months were, by any measure, extraordinary. B became the most informed and fiercely protective godmother in existence. Sophia's colleagues at the law firm started noticing the black car that dropped her off every morning. Her supervisor Mr. Harmon cornered her in the break room, looked at the car, went slightly pale, and never questioned a single leave request again. A rival family made one attempt to use Sophia as leverage. They were handled, nobody harmed, but firmly redirected, and Dante mentioned it over breakfast with the same energy he might use to describe a scheduling inconvenience. They were persuaded to reconsider their priorities, he said. That sentence has a lot of information missing from it. They are fine. They simply have a new perspective. On the matter, Sophia said flatly. On the matter, he agreed. Sophia, for her part, went full paralegal mode. She spent 3 weeks building a set of legal documents so thorough and comprehensive that when she showed them to Dante, he read every page in silence and then looked up. You drafted all of this yourself? 19 contingencies. Started with 17 to be conservative. He stared at her with undisguised respect, the pure, uncomplicated kind he gave rarely. You are the most prepared person I have ever met. I deliver pizza in rainstorms. I'm always prepared. Then Sophia's mother arrived. Elena Reyes, 5'2", strong opinions about everything, absolutely nobody to be trifled with, walked into the penthouse, sat at the dining table, and looked at Dante for a long, silent, unblinking moment. Dante, who had faced down rival crime families without flinching, looked genuinely uncertain. Elena spoke to him in rapid Spanish. He answered in Spanish, which Sophia had not known he spoke, which she found privately rude. This went on for 20 minutes while Sophia sat between them eating crackers and feeling like a spectator at a very high-stakes match. At the end, Elena poured herself coffee and said in English, "He'll do. Sunday dinners. Every week." Dante agreed without hesitation. Sophia looked at both of them. Did anyone want to include me in whatever just happened? No, said Elena. No, said Dante. Bruno shook his head from across the room. Lucia Elena Moretti Reyes arrived on a Tuesday morning at 6:43 a.m. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. A full head of dark hair and eyes that hadn't decided their color yet. The hospital floor had been discreetly secured. B and Bruno sat in the waiting room, a pairing that had, over the months, developed into a relationship best described as mutually suspicious and somehow functional. And in the delivery room, when the nurse placed Lucia in Dante's arms, Sophia watched something happen to this controlled, calculating, precise man that she had never seen before and would never forget. He held his daughter with the careful, terrified reverence of someone entrusted with the most valuable thing they'd ever touched. And then, quietly, completely, without a single piece of armor, he cried. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just honestly. The way of a man meeting something bigger than all of his defenses. From the doorway, Bea saw it, pressed both hands over her mouth, and also cried, which she would deny for years. In the waiting room, Bruno received the text, mother and baby, both healthy. He read it twice. Set his phone down. Looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then he bought everyone in the waiting room coffee, because that was how Bruno celebrated. 3 years later, Sophia passed her bar exam on the first attempt. She opened a small legal practice, 3 people, focused on working-class families who needed real representation and couldn't afford it. Dante funded it, no conditions, no strings, never mentioned it in a way that felt like debt. Bea was her first hire and cried when offered the job, then immediately reorganized the entire office. Lucia Moretti Reyes, age 3, was an entire personality in a small body. She had her father's eyes and her mother's immovable will. She had already, on 2 separate occasions, stared down fully grown men in business meetings, and both men had found it oddly unsettling. She called Bruno Boo. Bruno had never corrected this. He had been witnessed, by multiple people, making animal sounds on request for her entertainment. If you mentioned this to him, he would look at you with complete blankness and deny everything. And Dante Moretti, still powerful, still controlled, still the kind of man that rooms organized themselves around, had been quietly, permanently changed. Sophia had collected the evidence over 3 years, the way he laughed when he didn't expect to. The way he still sometimes looked at her like she was the most confusing and wonderful thing that had ever walked into his life. Once, when Lucia was very small and wouldn't sleep, Sophia heard him walking the length of the penthouse at midnight, singing to her quietly, thinking Sophia was asleep. She watched from the doorway the whole time. She never told him. Some things you just keep. At a charity gala much later, a journalist got a question through. Ms. Moretti Reyes, you two are from such different worlds. How did it all begin? Sophia smiled. I delivered his pizza. And then? He overtipped. I gave it back. He's been confused about me ever since. 2 feet away, Dante said nothing. But the corner of his mouth moved. Just slightly. And that is the story of how one wrong address pizza delivery, on one rainy Thursday, changed absolutely everything. A broke paralegal in a flooded jacket walked into the most dangerous building in the city, and accidentally walked into the rest of her life. The end. Pizza Baby Blackheart. If you made it this far, like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Was it the pizza callback, Bruno and Bea, or Dante crying in the delivery room that got you? See you in the next one.